Hi, Jim here. I made a video the other day of um, how to just take scrap wood and make, uh, just using conceptualization, right? Just getting the concept of something and be aware of what we already have to accomplish a task and without having to maybe buy anything, right? Yeah. Try to keep the cost of everything down. Not everybody has an open bank account where they can just buy whatever. So, but yet we want to do certain things in life, and we cut here, we cut there, we cut here, we save there, and next thing you know, it by 12 months goes by, we're talking many thousands of dollars sometimes that now we have that money to go on a vacation or something, or do whatever, right? Or save it for that rainy day that always comes, like today, raining. Rain's good. This time of year, don't have to water the garden. So, so you got this piece of scrap of wood here, and it's just something that I picked up in Lowe's. You can get at Home Depot wherever. Uh, just they have odds and ends of things that they cut in the store, and then they throw it in the scrap pile to be discarded. And so I went and picked up a bunch of scraps, and I made a video of the beginning process the other day, and this is just kind of a follow-up of an end product. And so I cut those pieces down, and what I did was I built my own frames, and this is what my frames, homemade from scrap wood, right? This is what my frames look like after work. Now, if I was a beef farmer, I wouldn't be doing it this way. But for just to replace some boxes now and then, or because maybe the hive is expanding slowly. Mine didn't expand slowly. Mine went from one hive in April 1st to right now. A couple months later, I have five, and I caught them all. Everything, all the bees I have, I caught from out there. Who knows where? They just came into my property, and they went into my baited nukes, and now I have five hives, and they're all doing great. I just got to feed them. So what I did is I built all these frames out of, now it wasn't out of this presswood, this, I don't know what that is, but but it was a similar piece. It had this groove in the middle, and so what I did is I cut them down, and then and I built them into these frames, and so what I did was uh, I cut the groove. So if I ever wanted to add those boards, those centerpieces, panels, each one of these will be able to accept those panels if I ever want to shift to a panel. But my bees do a pretty good job. So what I did, making their own comb, what I do is take some, I take some, it's over yonder. What I do is I take a heat gun, and then what I'll do is I'll put a little bit of wax. I'll put a little bit of wax inside a baby glass jar, baby food jar, and I take my heat gun, and I'll just leave that sit there for a while, slowly heat and melt that wax. I got a little spoon, well, it's in there pretty good now. I got this little spoon that what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of that, it stays melted, right? Because I got that heat gun on the side, just keeping it at that right temperature without boiling it. It did get to a boiling point at one point. I don't want to boil the wax. Just want to keep it soft, melted. And so what I would do is I would take a little bit of wax, dip it in there. I have my thing all ready to go right next to it. I just slip that right in there in that melted wax, and it holds these in really good. Before I came up with that method, they kept falling out. I squeezed them in my little groove, and they would just, the heat, if I had them in a hive, the heat would just drop out. And now that I melted them to the wood inside the groove. All these frames are like that. So they all have a little bit of starting corner. And I notice when I do that, when I catch a swarm, it looks so cool. They start in both corners and they come and they work out and then down and towards the center. Gives them a great starting point, right? Yeah, I really like the way it looks when they start, and it's nice and even. And so these frames here, I made a little bit wider at top so that they can get more wax. And I don't make all my frames the same width. They have to be the same depth because when I cut the groove inside here, you know, I want to make sure that they fit. So I don't want the, I want the width here, the depth of it about 5/8. And so you can always get the dimensions online. So, um, and so all that was free. The only thing that cost me was my time, and that's it. And same thing with this box. I just had some 3/4 inch scrap from other project wood, and I built 6 of these just out of some scrap wood that I had from other projects. And so what I'm doing here is just giving a concept, giving an idea of what we can do ourselves. Now I made these a little wide. I'm not sure if the bees can even, well, yeah, they actually should be able to crawl through some of them. But what I might do is like drill little holes so that they stay even. Drill little holes right in between here so that they have more room to climb up. Now why they want to climb up on top? Well, they build comb on top. Actually, I'd rather just keep them, like take this panel, like here I got a panel, and I got this panel, and I'm going to be putting this on all my hives. I don't want them on top. They make a big mess up here, building scraggly comb up there and doing weird things. So I take them with something like this. That'll keep them from climbing up up here. I don't want them up here anyway. They make a mess. So I got these squares that I cut out, and I can take these and just set them right on top and then put my cover on there, and it all stays nice and clean on top. So when I take my cover off, I just peel this back, voila. And there won't be all those bees on top. You got to smoke them down, and yeah. So this is how I choose to design my hives. And the handles, you know, you got those standard hives, and they got that little hole there. You got to get your fingers in there. Well, I decided to put long handles. I can really move around and adjust my position and weight and shifting, and it makes it safer, in my opinion. So I installed handles on both sides so that it's a more manageable thing, because when these things get, because I'm using these for them to, I'm going to use these broods for them storing their winter food. I'm not going to be using supers for their food. I used the super last year, and they ran out. It wasn't enough to get them through the winter. And they came and let me on January 1st. I was in here doing stuff like I do most days, even in the winter. And I typically leave the garage and door open unless it's raining hard or something. And my whole garage filled with bees, and they were all bouncing off me, getting my attention, but I didn't know it. I thought they were looking for a home because I had some boxes in here, and they were going in the boxes, and so that went on for like 4 days until I realized what was happening. They were letting me know that they ran out of food, so I went out there and fed them, and all that stuff stopped within minutes. No more filling the garage, and no more bouncing off me, tap, 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 circling me. I didn't know bees did that. Go to their master and say, "Hey, aren't you the keeper of the bees? Come and feed us. We're out of food." So I didn't know that was something that they did, and they let me know it even now. So I had one beehive that exploded lately, and they're all over me. So I thought, what? So what happened was there wasn't enough food in the area for the size of growth that they did earlier on in spring when all the trees were flowering, and they ran out of food inside, so they started killing each other in mass. And it was a packed hive before that happened, and they just ran out of, there wasn't enough flowers in the area, along with the other 4 hives. You know, there wasn't enough for 5 hives for the resources that were necessary for the girth that hive had. So they were just killing each other by the thousands. Big pile, fighting on the front, fighting on the ground. They were calling the colony. They were calling it. They were reducing the size. So I started feeding that hive. Everywhere I dotted a little bit of sugar syrup, where they were killing each other on the board, stop. I put a little circle of sugar there. they stop killing themselves virtually immediately. So I'm feeding that hive, that healthy one, a lot every day, all day long. And so I just went and bought two 50-pound bags of sugar yesterday because they were eating so much. And I'm also feeding the new swarm I just caught. I'll be transferring that on a next nice day. I'll be transferring that into this box right here. So this box, that swarm I caught is in a baited nuke still. I wanted to leave them in there for about a week before I transferred them to this box. And so there's already 5 frames in the other one. They probably got all that filled up. So I'm feeding those bees heavy as well. And so they'll have some nice, clean wood smelling frames, and they'll just get right to work. And so, yeah, so it's time consuming to do it randomly, because if we make some frames like that, we do some project, and I just need to do this, get myself set up just to make a few of this or that. It's really time consuming because sometimes we don't have the same method the next time for some reason. For me, it's best to make a whole bunch of something, get like a routine of making that particular dimensions and all that that I have in mind, because I don't always make my frames exactly the same dimensions, except for width. They have to be the same length, right? Wide, ordinary to fit. So all that's going to be the same. But I don't always make my side bars the same, and I don't always put a groove inside here, a cut, and so I don't always do that the same. So they don't, and the same thing with the bottom bar. The bottom bar is not always the same width and depth, because I'm going by how many pieces can I get out of this one piece of wood, and so I'll try to cut my wood that I do have, the free stuff, and get as many pieces out of it. So this might be a little, more narrow here, or thinner or thicker here. So I just go by the scrap wood, and that's how I've done all my frames. All the frames that I've had out there. And so, yeah, just kind of make your own thing. So, all these frames are, in my opinion, perfect frames, right? Because we don't have to always buy stuff. As long as we have the concept of what we want for the bees, our bees, and what we think will make them happy, and what we think and believe will be sufficient. It'll be sufficient. It doesn't need to be perfect in somebody else's view of something. Understanding what the bees' needs are, and saying, oh, I'll just do it this way, even though it's different dimensions than what's maybe recommended. Or bees just want a place to lay their eggs, lay their eggs, store their resources, keep them warm. And they're going to be happy bees, plenty of food, regulate the hive. So what I have also is I have these bottom screen boards that I made. Now I also made these kinds of things here. So if I want to add something on top, say for example, I want to add two broods together. They're different queens. They're different hive, but I want to put them together for the winter, so they can help keep each other warm. So I can take something like this, and so that I have a gap, and then I can put little strips here so they can come in and out. I can say for example, the bottom entrance is here. I can make it, or maybe it's over here, and then I can make the other entrance for the top hive on the opposite side. They just put some wood in here and then just leave a gap there for that different queen and hive for them to get in and out. But they'll get in and out at opposite sides. And then what I would do is I would take my divider screen. I have a divider screen that I built, and I would take that divider screen and put that on top of what you see right there. And what that'll do is that'll keep them separate. So I have a screen on both sides of this panel, and then I would just take this here. So this would go on top of the other hive, So you got one hive there, and then you got this exit that you'd have here for them to get in and out, and then you have this system. Then you just take the other hive, you set it right on top, and you have two hives stacked that'll keep each other warm, right? And they'll adjust to the different queen pheromones, and they can't touch each other, they can't sting each other, they can't get to each other. So that's what I came up with as well. If I ever want to just, maybe I don't have as much room, right? I don't have room to put 5, 6 hives where I want them to be. I may just stack my hives, and they'll take up less space. But we need to understand it's going to be more difficult when we have this process to get in there and inspect. So if you're one of those inspectors that likes to go in there once a week, this may not be a good setup. But for someone like me, I choose to only go in my hive when something's up. Something's not right, right? Is there a queen in that one? Something's not right. But I avoid going in my hive and taking the frames out and doing all that kind of stuff. I choose to just let nature take its course and let it do its natural thing without me intervening, or intervening as little as possible. And so, I would just take little strips of wood, put it here, leave a little gap here, and entrance in the bottom over here, and an entrance on the top over here, and you got 2 hives. And you can do that as high as you want. I only got a little piece of property. I'm gonna put all my bees, all 10 hives right here. Yeah, you could probably do something. You maybe have to do something where you got maybe turn entrances this way, put an entrance so you have a hole over here, then you have a hole over here for a different hive, and a hole over here, and down there. By the time you get way up here, you got another hole up here. These girls are way down here getting it out. Then you got this other 4th or 5th hive that's way up there, and that's far enough. The entrances are far enough. They'll know. They'll know where their own personal entrance is. And so I just wanted to share this concept. Now, this is something that I came up with because it's very functional for my style. What makes most sense to me. And so I have this bottom screen board that I put on the bottom, and so the bottom has so the hive would sit. So this would be the entrance. So the hive would sit on top of this burger. Somehow it just sit right on top there. So the hive will sit on top. Of this screen, and what'll allow to happen is those bees can come in and out, and the front here, and I've got this. So I would put a strip. So I put a strip in the front to block that. But if I wanted to, like, it's hot, it's like in the hundreds, and I want more airflow because they're really suffering, I'll be able to lift this up, like take some wood, and lift this up in the air enough to where this beehive will have plenty of airflow. It would just be like little strips in the corners. I wouldn't like run the whole thing. Just little pieces of wood in the corners. And that would, or 4x4 blocks, and just raise that puppy up, right? And just raise that thing up in the air as much as we feel comfortable at the moment, depending upon how much heat's going on around us and them. And so this kind of design offers a lot of versatility in managing a hive and keeping the bees more safe, happy, and by putting a brood box, an empty brood box instead of a super, in early spring, Um, it would allow them to store more food. And we're going to be in a situation where we're less likely to have to feed them throughout the winter, which was the case last year. I had to feed them. What was that? That was another hive. Yeah, we don't have to feed them if we allow them to store. Like say for example, come late fall, getting towards winter, take a peek, check the frames, make sure they've got good storage for the winter. And if you have one hive, healthy hive, a brood box, and you have one brood box on top that's full of honey, you shouldn't have to feed those girls. And so the observational panel on these hives, what I'm able to do. So for example, this would be the front. What I'm able to do with this design is I have these observational panels, and I will take these panels and just slide them right on in there. And then I have a little strip of wood that I put here to block any bees from getting in there and getting themselves trapped. Because when a bee gets in there, she smells the queen's pheromones. She's trying to get in the hive, but she came in the wrong entrance. And so she'll try to get through that 8-inch hardware cloth, and what she'll do is she will just keep bouncing on this thing from the underside, from in here. She'll keep bouncing and bouncing until she runs out of energy, and then she dies. And I found, a number of girls just dead here trying to get in through here until they died. And so what I do is I just have this little block that I put there, slide that in, put the block in there, and that stops that. And when it's hot, and I see a lot of fanners out there, I have this little 8-inch little piece that I just slip right, instead of the wooden block, I slip this little 8-inch hardware cloth in there to keep the bees from getting in there. And that allows more airflow. Because what happens is the bees are always flapping their wings inside. So they're bringing in nectar and pollen. They're trying to reduce the moisture. So there's always an airflow. There's always a pressure inside the hive. That's how they regulate the temperature, the moisture content, trying to dry out the honey to get it down to that 18%. And so there's always amount of pressure inside. So, I mean, I can feel it, sometimes when I'm back there, I can feel the heat from them flapping their wings and building that inner pressure. I can feel a draft coming out of this hole when I got the screen there. And so this is my personal design. I'm sure that a lot of people have something similar like this, but I designed it this way because one, it's free. Everything here, there's nothing here that I paid for except for the screen, and everything else was just scrap wood. I mean, you can get scrap wood at construction sites. You can get scrap wood in a lot of different places. Your local hardware store. All kinds of places. I just got to do a little research on that. And so this is my homemade design that I'm not saying that you should build it exactly the same way. You can be your own artist and design it the way that fits you, using just the basic concept of what I'm saying here. You go by the kind of equipment that you have, the kind of, as far as tools goes, you go by the kind of materials that you might have access to, and you might want to change something up, but yet it's still functional, and you still get the similar results, right? And I think I have another top cover somewhere, some sort of cheap top cover, maybe, I don't know. I don't have a top cover for this one. I guess I'm gonna have to build one. So I have another top cover somewhere. So then the top cover with the sides on it would go on top there. That's not the top cover, but you get the idea. I have one somewhere. So, all right, well, Please subscribe, thumbs up, ring the bell, leave a comment, click the like, and there's going to be some other projects that I'm doing that I might make some recordings of that. Just kind of giving some concepts, some ideas, some thoughts, and you become your own artist. You know, it's like when we see something, you know, they're showing how to do something, and we go, what? Our brain comes up with something totally different to use it for, right? Something that's totally unrelated, but that concept led us to solve another problem that's has nothing to do with bees or hives, or you get the point. And all right, that's my day. Good day.